Welcome to the What's Working podcast, the podcast where we ask, what's working? Hey everybody, welcome to the What's Working podcast. I am Jimmy Nash, and I'm thrilled to have in the studio today Dan Chmielewski, owner and founder of Madison Alexander PR. Dan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey Jimmy, thanks so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
We had a call the other day, and I swear we probably went on 45 minutes. We should have just recorded that, but we're gonna go over it today. If you can give me a little bit of background on yourself, we'll do the abbreviated version because I know you had quite a bit of background.
Okay. Well, I founded Madison Alexander in 2004, but I've been involved in technology PR going back to the 80s. I did a article for an alternative weekly in Central New York about satellite TV and cable TV, and it got some decent reception. But I had also applied for a marketing job with a company that had products in both areas, which made me get hired there. And I just fell in love with tech, learned all about signal distribution. Went to work for a local area networking provider in Greater Boston. Went spending times at Data General, which was that Tracy Kidder book, The Soul of the New Machine, where they invented a mini computer, which your cell phone has far more processing power today. Spent some time with agencies and networking companies in Metro Boston. Followed my wife to Southern California. She took a job with the Orange County Register, and I've been working in tech PR ever since. And then I was with Rainbow Technologies. They were acquired by another company, and I was doing a meeting at a trade show, and two analysts from IDC suggested I start my own thing. And the very next week, a client dropped in my lap. They will not admit to sending that client to me, but I'm sure that they did. And that got everything started. So we do things a little differently. We have a senior team. It's just that, public relations is a relationship business. So
Right.
The people that I work with have been in tech PR for a number of years, and it's a relationship business. So, we really specialize in working with startups, and we leverage the relationships we have with reporters and analysts and influencers, bloggers, to get the word out about these new startups, to get them on the map.
Cool. So I know we talked the other day when you talked about PR being a relationship business, because in every way, any business should have some emphasis on relationships.
Oh, yeah.
But like my wife and I, we have a marketing company. We can pretty much market anywhere as long as there's no language barrier for us as far as knowing what the culture is and that. But for you, I know you talked about some companies overseas trying to outsource or some companies in the U.S. trying to outsource their PR overseas, trying to network in the U.S. And you just talked about how those relationships, you need to actually know these people.
Yeah, we are aware of a couple agencies in London that try to hire some U.S. folks to manage U.S. business, but it's just the distance is a little tough. The other thing we run into every now and then is we'll have a client that has operations in the U.S., but most of the company is based in India, and they want to hire an Indian PR firm to do PR in the U.S., and it's just the hours just don't work. So,
Right.
It comes down to, I'm fortunate I have team members in Boston from my time there. I've got some folks in Florida, folks in the Bay Area, and in Orange County, California. So I have like a 15-minute ride to Disneyland. And I actually had a client from Budapest that spent a week with me in the office. And I told her, hey, on Friday, wear comfortable clothes. We're doing an offsite. And we went to Disneyland. And she goes, why Disneyland? I go, well, it's a 45-minute wait for every ride. We can talk a lot of shop. And we did. So
That's great because, my wife and I wish we were that close to Disney here. We're in St. Petersburg, so we're 90 minutes from Disney World. But we go there and we have a day and we talk business. That is the benefit of us working together as a couple. We get to go talk, and then because it's our business, so we don't mind talking and going and ride a ride and
right.
talk. So,
well, I have a similar situation. My wife is a journalist with Reuters, and she covers the business of entertainment and the technology of entertainment. And we do talk shop, but we don't have any conflicts. I think there are two people in our professional world that we both interact with. One's a VC and one's a journalist. But we keep things. I pick up things from her. I'd like to say I have a master's in what not to do by listening to her complain about PR people. And then likewise, I will give her tips on how to get around a difficult PR person to the executive she needs to reach. So it's one of those things. We have a really interesting partnership in that respect.
awesome. So tell me, in specializing in tech PR, what would you say is one of the defining factors that would be different in focusing on tech companies versus any other PR?
Oh, well, a basic understanding of the tech and how it works is helpful. Knowing what the acronyms mean. There's a lot of acronyms. I think it's also trying to understand the differentiation between your client and the folks they compete with. We run into situations every now and then. We'll talk to a new prospect, a new client, and they'll say, we don't compete with anyone. Well, so that's not going to work, because that's going to get translated by the media and the analyst community as, well, no competition, no market. So you have to define who you compete with, who you run up against, and what's your differentiation, what's your secret sauce, and promote that. And the other thing too is encouraging people to be forthcoming. If you think about the executives in any business that get most coverage, it's the folks that say what's on their mind. That aren't afraid of making a mistake. This is what they're going to live by, and there are countless examples. But the folks back there that are afraid of saying the wrong thing or upsetting someone, or they're not going to get the pickup. It just it comes down to is you have to, if you're eating your own dog food, that's great. But I mean, it comes down to executives saying what's on their mind and what they think of, even if it's outside of their wheelhouse. Come across as a security thought leader, because most of my clients are in cybersecurity. But that's in any business. If you're an application developer, software developer, what's your differentiation? So speaking your mind is important.
That's awesome. So thinking of, you're actually my first purely PR person I've talked to. Most of the companies I've talked to are more marketing, even very niche marketing. So I know a lot of people out there really don't, or even if they say they do, don't understand the difference between PR, marketing, how they work together, and how they are both valuable. So yeah, I don't have one specific question in there, but if you could describe in your words the difference.
Let me back up a little bit for you. So I have a dual degree in public relations and journalism, and a concentration in marketing and broadcasting. Okay, so I have worked as a journalist in radio. I was a news director for a country station, even though I can't stand country music. And I was a freelance magazine writer, and often I would write articles for other people's bylines. I would ghostwrite that stuff. So I had experience doing that stuff. And so I'm a big fan of journalism and news. My favorite movies are all, movies about, reporters and editors. The TV shows that deal in that. It's always love, seeing that sort of stuff. When I was in school, there's this notion that PR needed its own seat at the table, and in some industries that's perfectly fine and perfectly acceptable. But PR, generally speaking, in the technology world, is a marketing function. It's also frankly the cheapest kind of marketing a company can do, and it has an incredible credibility. Especially because, if you're working with, if a newspaper or a magazine or a tech blog says it's going to have a little more credibility than an advertisement is going to. Unfortunately, when things get tough, PR marketing is usually one of the first things that people cut. Right. And it's like, hey, if sales are down, hire more salespeople. Okay. If you want to get the word out, get more marketing going. It's that sort of thing. There's been a real transition from the time when I started in this business. There was a lot of focus on advertising. You get these trade magazines every week, and they're very thick and they're loaded with ads. And now advertising seems to have kind of really gone off. It's turned into lead generation programs. It's turned into webinars and events where you're qualifying, getting real sales leads. But it comes down to, and then I was actually doing a panel in San Diego for a tech conference. Said, how can we get better journalists, better coverage of our industry? Said, advertise. These publications need a revenue stream, and you just can't put everything on the internet for free. And it comes down to, if we go to trade shows now, there are pure editorial opportunities, and then there are paid content opportunities. So you have to have a nice balance. But the bottom line is, because of the paid content opportunities, it still has to have this element of quality journalism behind it. So it's really funny. My dad was a laborer. He was a furnace operator at a copper mill in upstate New York, and he never understood what I did for a living. And he was like, so you write letters and you talk on the phone and they pay you for this. So back about 30 years ago, I have two brothers that still are in my hometown, and they saved a girl in a weird snowmobile accident. Her snowmobile went into a creek, which was deep, and the machine fell on top of this 16-year-old girl, and she couldn't get it off. Her sister climbed out of the snowbank, flagged my brothers down, and they dragged her out, and she was blue. She almost died. And my brother saved her life. And there's all kinds of coverage about Hero Brothers Save Girls. So I'm like, this is a great story for Rescue 911, because it's a weird accident, near-death situation, happy ending. So one brother said, yeah, sure. If you think you can place it, go ahead and pitch it. The other brother said, no, we just did what anyone else does. Like, well, I've got half their permission, so I just went ahead and started pitching. And I got a hold of the right producer, and I said, what's the process? And they told me what the process was, and I followed it. And I left enticing stuff at the end of the newspaper coverage to prove it happened. And then they called and said, send us the TV videotape. And I sent the videotape with another letter that said, hey, got the names and phone numbers of everybody. And lo and behold, Rescue 911 comes out to my hometown, and they filmed this thing. My dad's watching every episode. Every single day they filmed it. So that airs finally, and I'm from a smaller town in upstate New York. It's like 40,000 people. I think the whole town tuned in to watch the show. And when it was done, my dad called me up and he said, you know what? You did this. And he goes, yeah, I know what you do now. You sell stories. I said, that's exactly what I do, Dad. I sell stories. So the back end of that is I'm at a pop culture convention, and Shatner is there with my son, and we're going to have a picture taken. And along the way, they say, don't talk to Mr. Shatner. Don't touch him. Don't kiss him. Don't ask him to sign anything. Just smile, get your stuff, and leave. But of course, I talk to Shatner. So every picture with William Shatner is he's smiling with everyone until you get to our picture, where he's like, I say, Mr. Shatner, I'm Dan Chmielewski. You did a story about my brothers in Rescue 911. Tough last name, but you nailed it. He goes, really? So, it's a Shatner smiling, gets stars. He's like, so we had to do a make good at another show. So that's how it goes. But again, we're storytellers. We're storytellers, and that's what we do.
Well, and that's awesome. I think because I've done quite a few of these podcasts now, and one of the things that I hear throughout is telling the story for a company is so important. Like I think nowadays paramount to people want to know who your company is, what their story is, and that authenticity. Especially, and I know this kind of ties in naturally, you being in tech PR, so much has changed with AI. People don't know what's real anymore. And I've wondered, how has that affected you just in the last 2 or 3 years?
I will say AI is a nice tool to use. It is. We don't use it to write anything. I find that when I have AI write a press release for me, I spend more time editing the press release than if I wrote it myself straight out. I think AI is good for some basic fact checking, although I don't trust it. I will see what it comes up with, and I will go to other trusted fact checking sites to verify. I think it's good for coming up with ideas. I worked with a book publisher at the RSA conference, and she gave me a list of 25 books they wanted to publish, and all the ideas originated from AI, which was interesting. Cool. I think if you're a younger person in this business and you have an over-reliance on AI to do your copy, you're going to be in trouble. It's good. You're going to be found out really soon. You still have to make the investment in education and training and understanding the technology you're working with. And there are agencies out there, by the way, that I see advertising on Facebook or on Instagram where they promise tier 1 coverage, and will have these people write about you for very little money. All you have to do is answer a few basic questions we have, and we'll craft an article and place it for you with these pubs. Well, they're buying the content on the paid content options for some of these outlets that have, and they're using AI to craft an article, which isn't necessarily very good. And they're guaranteeing coverage. You can't guarantee coverage in public relations. You cannot. It's not ethical. And if you are, you're just not being honest. And for companies out there, if you're talking to a PR person and they guarantee coverage, just run away, run in the opposite direction, because that's just not how it rolls. And these firms are over reliant on AI and the paid content. So they're buying the content ops and then placing the story and go, look what we did for you. That's just not working. I actually had one pitch me once. They wanted me to teach them stuff. Like, I'm not doing that. Sorry. AI is, it's a great tool. And in the tech clients we have a number of clients that integrate cybersecurity with AI functions. So what that does is it automates mundane, repetitive things like, threat assessments and penetration testing that can take a long, long time to do manually. And with AI, it goes much faster. So, and oftentimes better. So there's room for it, but in our business, it still comes down to solid news judgment, understanding the publication, and the important thing about the publications you're pitching is reading the work of the writers you're pitching. Okay, and there are services out there that give you the bios of the writers and a little overview of what their beats are, but you have to read the work they're doing. I mean, that's the number one thing that, my wife would tell you, that she gets pitched on stories because one service says she covers this, and she goes, no, I don't, but you might want to read my work to get an idea of the stories I'm chasing.
Well, and
And we
I
spend a
think
lot of time reading the work of the writers we pitch with.
I think that's probably going to be more important than ever because there's so many as a marketing company, we've had to dive in and just see what tools we should be learning or should be aware of, at
Right.
least in AI. And it's easier than ever to just mass mail to everybody and even have
Absolutely.
AI try to customize a little to everybody that you're sending to. But if you don't know the work and you just send out to 1,000 people and you don't know their work, you're going to suddenly maybe you would have had something that would fit them down the road, but now you're on that list of, oh gosh, these are just people spamming me with
Right.
things. So I think that personal touch, really researching yourself and verifying information, I've just got to think that's still going to set you apart as
Yeah,
a PR person.
absolutely. And again, if you love PR, you also have to like baseball because a good hitter is a 300 hitter, right? Well, that person fails 7 out of 10 times at bat. So not every pitch is going to work, but you want the better you know your audience, the better you know the publications you write for, the more likely you're going to get a yes to. I mean, we have some publications that say yes to everything we send because we have standards to make sure we go. And as one point of reference, we had a contributed article from a client once. And I read the thing over and I said, this is just a pure marketing piece. This is not going to get accepted. So we sent it to a trusted editor. Said, please, for your consideration. That was it. No, really. And he sent back a, how dare you? You know better than this, which I sent that letter over to the client. And I just let the editor know, thank you very much for helping me prove my point. Okay. It has to be an article that matters to your readers. It just can't be a blatant marketing piece. So that's how it rolls.
Of course.
But the other side of PR too is what a lot of people don't do. They don't leverage the PR the coverage you get into basic other marketing programs. You know, leveraging a quote from a trusted analyst or a great reporter who really liked something you announced, and using that in the context of your marketing materials. And then the other thing is we're encouraging all of our clients to take the coverage you get and send that over to your sales team. And their sales team uses that PR coverage as an icebreaker. Hey, wanted to make sure you saw we were in this magazine. Our CEO is quoted. And when can we have a follow-up conversation to talk about how we can help your company with what we do? You know, it's called merchandising publicity, and it has to be. And this is what brings PR into the whole marketing realm, into the entire sales route, and part of your whole outbound communications that's important to growing your business.
Of course. So you talked a little about paying for advertisement, recommending paying for advertisement, but I was curious what the, let's say, effectiveness of paying for advertisements versus getting articles written is. Do you see what kind of difference do you see in the return on either the investment or the return on just the readership? Or
well, you know, I think it's important for companies to position themselves exactly as they want. I mean, I worked for a big company that was never happy with the coverage they got, no matter what it was. It always had to be page one above the fold, if you will, and then had to have a positive headline. And the only way you're really going to get something like that is if you're buying an ad. Okay, I think it's an important part of your quality of your company or your product or the message you want to send out, the solutions you offer. And it's just not just like a paid advertisement, but a marketing program, a web seminar that attracts people with valuable information, and they have to register and qualify for stuff. Submitting your company and your products for awards is also very important. But it's, again, you just can't have just PR or just marketing. You've got to have an umbrella, if you will, that covers all of that stuff, all that outbound communications that puts you in front of your prospects, your customers. And the other thing too is working with your customers to use marketing and PR to sell other services and other products to them. I mean, once they've already said yes to one, it's a lot easier to say yes to somebody you said yes to before. So, I mean, I miss the days when the trade magazines were really thick with everything and you had a lot of stories to review. And right now, newsrooms are really cut to the bone all the way around. So we're working on ways to help these journalists, you know, cover the beats they cover in a manner that we react to the stories they're working on and writing about. But, you know, so some of these newsrooms are right down to 4 or 5 people, and it's just crazy how the amount of content they put out. And how do we help them do their job in a manner that respects their integrity, respects their ethics, and gives their readers meaningful, good information? So that's what we're always working on and trying to provide.
Right. So you talked a couple mistakes people make in PR, or whether from the company side or from the PR side. Is there any other huge, like main top mistake that you see people are making in PR that?
And I'm going to quote a dear client of my, former client of mine named Phil Lieberman. We were his client for 10 years. He ran Lieberman Software out of Los Angeles, and it was always fun going to his office because you could see Nakatomi Plaza from his office window. So, we always made diehard references to that. But, and Phil is still one of my very best references. And he would tell people doing reference check on us is listen, it doesn't matter if you have $10,000 a month to spend on PR or $50,000 a month to spend on PR. If you have nothing to say, you're not going to get any coverage. So you need to make that commitment to helping your agency, give them all the content they need to make you successful and get you out there. So that's really the bottom line. Is it comes down to, if you're going to make that investment in public relations for your company, be there with support, be there with reacting to something quickly, recognize that all your time is important. Sometimes you got to make a choice. Do I make that customer call, or do I do that quick call with an editor? My favorite little thing to happen is, we spend up to 3 months getting ready for big trade shows, sending out pitches to the press that's pre-registered and going to the show, or people they're going to show and register late, offer meetings with clients, either on site or off site or whatever, dinners, lunches, breakfast, you name it. And then the Monday before the show, they go, I can't make these 4 meetings. You got to move them. And it's like, I don't think you understand. The journalist time is also super valuable, and I can't exactly switch out that time. And so you either need to find another way for me to make that meeting. Maybe it's not you, but it's your number 2 or your number 3 person. So it comes down to make the commitment to be supportive of PR. I mean, you're investing the money in it. Now you got to help it make it work. Okay. I remember there was one trade show where a colleague in the business, not with my agency, asked for some time with my wife because she couldn't get through to her. And I asked my wife, hey, would you meet with this client? And she agreed to. And then she showed up at the trade show at CES on a Friday morning. The PR person that asked for the meeting wasn't there. The executive promised wasn't there. It wasn't a good outcome. So she tried to ask me to do the same thing the following year. I said, I'm done doing that. I'm not doing that. Sorry. You didn't take care of your end of the bargain last time. So, that's just the way it goes. All right. So that lesson 1 for me is don't go through me to get to my wife. It's not going to work. So, likewise, that's how it rolls.
Cool. A couple more questions today as we're moving along. As I said, I felt like you and I could have talked for hours the other day. So,
we could, yeah. You asked some great questions, by the way.
In talking about AI, I heard Mark Cuban say that there's going to be probably a huge surge in in-person networking conferences for that same reason we talked about. People don't know what's real anymore. They want to meet in person. Have you seen any of that yet? Do you see that ahead for PR as something that's going to be a surge for you?
It's interesting you bring that up. I'm in cybersecurity, and there's an organization called the Cybersecurity Marketing Society that we were exposed to because one of our former clients was a co-founder. And they have an annual event in Austin, Texas every year now where they bring cybersecurity marketers together to discuss issues and share strategies. And it's a really, I'm seeing more of that going to be happening. I think the funny thing is, if you just talk about just public relations people, that I think it's really going to be narrowed down to what industry are you in. So you're going to have people that are in healthcare, people in manufacturing, people in technology. There'll be subsets of that where there's going to be better, opportunities to meet and talk to people, as opposed to, just a generic, convention of PR people that are in all different things, because the needs I have are different from the needs of a healthcare publicist. So,
right. Okay. So I always like to ask this too. If you were giving advice to somebody just getting started, whether they're going to work for their first company or considering starting their own PR company, what would be the one piece of advice you could give them to help give them the one direction to the right step?
I'm going to give 2. Okay. The first one I'll say is, be a good consumer of news. Read the publications in your industry. Understand who the leaders are and try to figure out why they're the leaders. Okay. Read the work of the journalist you want to pitch and make that a daily thing. I mean, Google Alerts exist for a reason. You can read the work of folks that are doing that all the time. The other thing too is work hard on being a good writer. Work hard at that, because if you cannot write, a blank computer screen or a blank sheet of paper in a typewriter is a signed confession that you can't write. Okay. And also everybody needs an editor. No matter how good you think your stuff is, here, edit this thing, trim it down, tighten up the copy. Keep your writing. What nouns and verbs are muscle and bone. Adjectives, adverbs are fat. Keep your writing lean. So, and the more, think like a journalist. Put your editor's hat on. Why is this interesting? What would I go for? So I always think it's important to have some newsroom background. I mean, as a side hobby, I run a liberal political blog in Orange County, and it's taught me a lot of stuff about the whole concept of blogging. So we have set up, over the course of 20 years, we've set up corporate blogs for our clients and explaining, well, we had one client that was so nervous about getting a negative comment. I'm like, no, take the negative comment. It's all about how you manage the conversation.
Right.
You can use that negative comment to learn something about yourself, and also respond to the criticism and turn somebody into, from a tire kicker into a customer, because of how you adapted it. So it's managing the conversation.
That's if you're not getting a negative comment, you're not doing anything worthwhile.
That's right.
Or
you don't want me to see it. Yeah.
I'm going to build upon your recommendation to focus on learning to write. I grew up in a family of songwriters. I am a songwriter.
Excellent.
And we'd always say, if you're staring at a blank page, just write something down so you can change it. Because it's getting over that first, just write something down. You'll know if it's good or not pretty soon.
Oh, yeah.
But you got to get the momentum going.
Exactly. I mean, I look at stuff I've written 6 years ago, 16 years ago, 6 weeks ago, 6 days ago, and go, got to do some editing here, Yeah. It's just like, always be a good writer, be a curious writer. I'm reading and writing books to this day. So, I mean, it's just the way it goes. Everybody's got something to say.
Right. I have one final question that's not PR related, but you brought up Disneyland. Favorite Disney ride, go.
The Indiana Jones ride. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And I will tell you why. The truck at Disneyland is the truck from the movie where Harrison Ford goes underneath. It's the actual truck. So my wife covers Disney, and I have a daughter that works at Disneyland. She is a showrunner for the Marvel Universe at California Adventure. She's actually involved in the new Deadpool show that's coming up pretty soon. And so, I mean, you get a little, I've been invited as a +1 to a number of things that, are previews for the press, which is kind of fun. But, the Indiana Jones ride is my favorite beyond measure. I think the other thing, when it's a really hot day, It's a Small World is always worth that earworm just to get out of the sun for a little while.
Definitely.
But, it is, Disneyland's a wonderful place. I will say that client I had from Budapest that was here, that we took to Disneyland, she got very emotional when she got to meet Mickey Mouse. Because, Hungary was communist when she was a little kid. They had The Wonderful World of Disney dubbed in bad Hungarian, and she never thought she'd ever set foot at Disneyland or meet Mickey Mouse in person, and she got very emotional. So I was like, oh, okay, let's get some ice cream now. That's how it goes. Okay.
That's amazing. Well, Dan, thank you so much for sharing your stories with me today and your views on PR.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Everyone watching at home, I hope you gathered some valuable information on, and especially if you're running a company out there, invest not just in marketing, not just in advertising, but PR. Get a good PR person. Maybe if you're in Dan's industry, reach out to him.
So website is www.madisonalexanderpr.com. My email address is dchm@madisonalexanderpr.com. Always happy to talk to anybody interested.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for watching the What's Working podcast. And thank you, Dan. And we'll see you next time.